Hello, welcome to Star Wars Spelt Out. I'm your host, Josh Chapman, and today, finally, after a number of false starts, and I'll get into the details and stuff as we get kicking on of why it's taken so long to get back, but my guest, he's just chomping, he can't wait to talk on the long overdue, the missing piece of the Imperial Senate Podcast puzzle, the holdout, the one we've been trying to get, it's always the top dog is always the hardest to get. We can get bloody Charlie Ashby anytime on the phone, but this man here, he's hard to lock down. Nicky Kumar, how you going, man?
Hey, thanks for having me. Oh, man. I'm like the soul stone of
you are
of the Imperial. You got to work a little extra hard for this one.
Yeah, Charlie's just the Tesseract. He's just popping up everywhere.
Yeah.
It's just like, that again? Come on.
Yep. Exactly.
And that you were just there all along. Luckily, I didn't have to kill anybody to get you on the show, though.
Not yet.
You're just like, well, come on, but given I am the Soul Stone, someone's going to have to die. So
yeah.
I'll let you decide. But, I'm not a monster. You can decide. But,
right.
But no such luck. But no, I have Charlie on. Charlie wasn't that long ago, actually. He was on twice in about a month and a bit because I got Saf on after the Mandalorian finale. And she just goes, I'd really like to talk to Charlie about this. Can we get Charlie on? I'm like, well, he was just on, but yeah, I'm sure we'll message him. Why not? The more the merrier. And then obviously had Claire on a while back before Celebration. Like all that time back in the heady days of Celebration.
Oh, man, yeah. What a time. It just feels so long ago.
I know, it really does. Well, the funny thing is now that 2022 doesn't seem... it doesn't seem like a million miles away because it's like a year away now. But it also doesn't feel like a crazy idea at the time. Remember when we're waiting for news and what is going to happen? Why are we not hearing anything? And then finally they're like, hey, so Celebration's been cancelled, but it's coming back in 2022. And it was like, 2022? What are you doing? You're killing us. But it doesn't seem so crazy now, really, does it?
No, and it was one of those other things New Year's Day, first thing I thought, Celebration next year. It doesn't sound so bad, right? When you say it like that. And then it's also just thinking about the way sort of time worked. Again, time's been so weird where you think about March 2020 and it feels so long ago, but then you think about March to December 2020 and it's like, where the hell did that go? Yeah. There's times where even now this year it's it's January already.
Yeah, what happened?
It's just time's weird. Hopefully, what is it? August? Still planned for August next year.
Yeah, I think so.
Hopefully that will get here faster than.
So
than
you're
we think.
you're in. I don't know if you're in LA, but you're in California. If anybody doesn't know, I can tell by the surfboard in the background and the
right.
skating girls that just got out of shot and all that.
Hollywood signs right out.
Yeah, the Hollywood sign out the window and stuff. And the big pile of drugs that you've got next to you and all that kind of stuff.
Hey, there you go.
Are you sort of where you are going? Yeah, there's no way. If it had been coming up to, say, it had been 2021, August 2021. Are you kind of looking out the window? Would you be going? There's no Would you be feeling like it was going to be cancelled again? If it was supposedly coming up this August? Or do you feel like, we could probably swing it?
Yeah, it wouldn't happen this year. That's for sure. Yeah, I live in Hollywood.
Yeah, right. Oh, wow. Brag.
So it's not, it's honestly not a brag. This place is a dump. But anyway, it's it being pretty central to the LA area, it's not gonna happen. It's still just wild here.
Yeah. Right.
Not to say America really cares by the look of it, but it's still pretty bad to where I don't think they made the right call and just
bumping
totally
it down a year
skipping
kind of
this
thing.
year.
Yeah. I mean, we can't even get out of the country here, so that's completely off the charts. Everyone's coming here. They're shooting the new Thor movie in Sydney, and it's oh look, Natalie Portman's here. Oh look, Matt Damon's here. Mark Wahlberg's here. All these celebrities are just flying to Australia. I think I think they're just going, hey, we'll put a movie here and that'll give people an excuse to leave, and then they can just move to Australia and stay by the beach and kind of wait it out, basically. Yeah. But, so there's been articles of like, look, we spotted Natalie Portman at the supermarket. Look at all the vegetables she bought. Isn't that crazy? Like, not really, but I guess it's cool. I mean, I guess if I walk past Natalie Portman at Woolies or Coles or something, it would be sort of, you'd probably do a double check. You probably, I don't think I'd approach. I'd probably get a mace to the head or something. I'll probably get the hammer of thought at the head now. Yeah,
you can always tell. I mean, especially here, when you can tell who's been here a while with how they react to celebrities showing up.
Yeah, right.
Because it's kind of just like, I worked in a Lego store for a little while, and just talking to people, and they'd be like, yeah, David Beckham showed up a few years ago, and I told someone and they didn't know who he was. and it's like, and also, like Natalie Portman, I remember just from you mentioning her, she did come to the store one time, and it's just kind of like the people who are new are very, oh my god, and the people who are old are like, okay, next.
yeah, come on, move it along, Natalie.
Yep.
Like we went to spend an hour and a half with David Beckham explaining how Lego worked. We're like, you click one at the top, David, and then the next one comes at the top, and there's instructions over there. And he's like, right, okay, I think I can get it. I think I can. Yeah. I don't know. I don't want to diss David. I do like David Beckham. Yeah. I'm sure he's a very nice man. Yeah. So there's people here shooting. They're all coming over here for stuff, and they're building that volume in Sydney. So I know I was a bit bummed. I kind of hoped that they were going to shoot Obi-Wan here. I was almost going to like money down, like Ewan McGregor back to his roots, back to Sydney. But, get it all happening again. But no such luck. I was a bit sort of I was surprised that they were shooting it in LA.
Yeah, I even would have thought, I would have thought London before LA, honestly.
Yeah.
But I guess it's the ability to have those like multiple productions running at once.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, for sure. I guess you don't know. I mean, I don't know anything about Ewan McGregor's personal life. You're like, hey, I live in LA. I don't live in London.
That's true.
It's freezing. I got out of there first chance I got. So I don't know. And maybe it's not necessarily just dictated by the star, though I'm sure it's got a lot to do with it. I don't think Hayden Christensen gets to have a say of where they shoot it. I think he just goes where he's told.
Right. Just happy to be here at this point.
He's like, hey guys, I'm back. Yeah. Remember me? What do you reckon about that? Like Hayden Christensen coming back. Like, do you think he's going to get a fair whack at it? Like, he wouldn't agree to it if he's just going to be in the suit.
Yeah. It's interesting because, like, also you would think it's James Earl Jones, right? Like,
yeah.
There's no, like, to what degree is he actually going to be, like
unless he's playing Anakin.
Yeah,
there's kind of no point in him being there because it's not like they called him up for Rogue One or anything.
Yeah, exactly. I would hope there's some good stuff for him to do, even if it's like Rogue One. They tease the out of the suit, the back to. Maybe there's something there for him, and that I think there's got to be some sort of like Anakin presence, even if it's like memories or flashbacks or something. Well, it's just I don't know why else specifically Hayden just to sit in the suit.
Yeah, but I mean, like that out of this, like we've had the out of the suit, like you talk about the Rogue One tease, and it's kind of like you see sort of just like the back of the head, and then obviously Empire Strikes Back, you see like the back of the head kind of thing. Like, do you reckon if they showed like a front on, torso down Vader, Anakin, like that sounds like the stuff of nightmares, really? You know what I mean? Like, do you reckon they'd actually do? Like, it kind of feels like they've always danced around it. Like to actually, if they actually did a bit where like Vader, like it's just Vader and the helmet comes off and the chest plate comes on, he's just sitting there and he's all like fucked up, and you're just like, ah!
Yeah, because it's also not that far removed from Revenge of the Sith, right? I don't specifically remember when they.
It's like 6 years or 7 years or something.
Yeah, I think they did put a timestamp, but I don't remember how far. So yeah, it'd be weird, and just imagine it's like Vader's mornings, right?
Yeah.
They wake up. feel pain.
Yeah, he's just getting toast, and he's just sort of like, another day, I suppose. Yeah. I'm just in that little. It'd be really weird if he just like lived in that little cube thing. Like he's got his whole castle, but he can't actually go outside his cube. Like the castle's just for show, really. He's like he actually has to sit in like a room the size of an office for whatever reason because of all his life. You know, he's got a little bed and he's got his little toaster and whatever else. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. He wouldn't bother coming back unless there was some meat to get into.
Yeah,
and I'm sure he probably also feels like, hey, if I get something decent here, I could the Hayden Christensen jokes, which don't really exist these days anyway, but that always, in the mainstream press, if something comes up and is written about those movies, Hayden's usually the first one who gets the kicking.
Yeah, and I think also, like, I think these guys probably see what Mandalorian's done to sort of this Star Wars profile, right? Of a successful, Disney Plus show, and I think a lot of them see that just like as anyone should, like it's just a good opportunity, And
the fact that it runs longer, like it's going, well, I'm not in a 2-hour movie where I'm lucky if I get 5 minutes of a scene to crush it.
Yeah.
If it's a 5 or 6 hour thing end to end, I've actually got some chance to get some meat on the bones, and I'm sure that's probably what something like Ewan McGregor reckons as well. Like they're always talking Obi-Wan movie, and then in this case, it's just like, hey, I can actually, do some acting, so to speak.
Yeah, and especially someone like Ewan, I feel like would be it's probably like easier for him to have more behind the scenes control on a Disney Plus show as opposed to like a movie.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
which is probably partially why it's taken so long to get here as well. Mm-hmm. Like, I'd be curious to see whether he actually like lobbied for Hayden. You know what I mean? Like, it's very possible that he wasn't included. There'd been no real. It only really seemed recently, like since they were like, oh, we're going to stop, we're going to rewrite it, we're going to da, and then all of a sudden, the Hayden talk started coming up again. That maybe he's just looking out for his bro.
Yeah, and he was like extremely complimentary, right? Like I think there was some quote where he was like, one of the biggest joys of this whole project is that I get to work with him again.
Yeah. Party like it's 2001.
Oh man, exactly. Like that's what it's about. And like, yeah, it's like it just Hayden specifically. To me, it feels good. Like I don't know what it means for the story. I hope I'll like the story. I'm sure I will, because it's it's fun to like things. But yeah, like I'm just so excited for him. I'm sure they sold him something great that interests him, and just again, you mentioned the sort of him being a scapegoat of sorts, and growing up, like being a kid when episode 2 was the movie, and like Hayden was my guy, like Anakin was my guy, and these it almost feels like retribution to have him like come back in something that people are like actually kind of clamoring for. So yeah, I'm excited for him, whatever it ends up being. I'm glad he's there.
I put this question through. God, I can't remember what the context was. It might have been for one of the Steel Wars question things, and I was trying to think of a clever question or something like that. I always try to stump Steel, if I can put him on the spot. No softballs. And I think it was like, it like in this world where it's like, all right, Hayden's back, Tamara Morrison's back, Luke Skywalker's back, Hamill's back. They've done that. Like, is there anyone? Like, is there a white whale? Is there like who's left on the shelf of like this person to get back into Star Wars? Like they've kind of nailed them all now. Like Harrison Ford, or like anybody who, I mean, even like dead people are on the table. You know what I mean? Like Peter Cushing, they got back.
That's true.
And who knows what they'll end up doing with Carrie in the future as well. But is there anybody kind of left on the shelf where you kind of go, they'd never get them? Like, is Natalie Portman like we keep circling back around to Natalie Portman every time. Yeah. But is she sort of the last holdout of the sort of, you reckon, like, don't know. Like, I mean, question aside of how do you actually make that work, but she could play 20 still.
Exactly. Yeah, she's the only one I can think of. They even got Dennis Lawson for Rise of Skywalker.
30 years he was mouthing off about how he hated Star Wars.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's got to be her. It's got to be Natalie, because you think about everyone else and they've kind of got them. I like Harrison's job's already done.
Oh yeah,
they got him.
But I mean, they got him, but then they got him back again. Like they actually got him back for Rise of Skywalker again. Yeah. So kudos to them on that one. So he was. I've always felt like he was the white whale, back in the day. But yeah, look, it seems like, and then she's never had any animosity towards Star Wars at all. Actually, like she doesn't do a lot of interviews. I don't read a lot of interviews. I'm just not like It sounds like we're on the Natalie Portman obsessive train here, but I don't actually follow what she does that closely.
Right.
Like, she's doing Marvel. Okay, cool. But it's not as if when you talk about like Dennis Lawson or like back in the Harrison Ford, you're like, oh, they're always a bit itchy about Star Wars, and And she would always kind of make jokes. I've seen her host SNL and stuff, and she'd be quite happily make Star Wars gags and all that kind of thing. Like, I guess the new cast, I suppose, I think it's probably a little bit too soon to sort of say that I know they're all like, we're done. I've been through this thing. I've had enough for now. Yep. Don't ask me any Star Wars questions for a while. But that was only, Rise of Skywalker was only just over 12 months ago. So
yeah, it always kind of makes me laugh at the people who are like, they've already ditched the sequel trilogy. It's like don't worry. It's been a year.
Yeah.
It's like it'll be fine. Like,
a lot of those interviews with like people like Oscar Isaac and John Boyega and stuff at the time, was actually before the movie came out. So they're not going to be like, oh, I'm definitely coming back, or I'm definitely not, because we didn't know what happened to the characters.
Yeah.
If people had been like, oh, I'd love to come back to more Star Wars, it's like, well, you're obviously not dying, Poe Dameron. Like,
right. Right. Yeah. It's just one of those things, it's like you're not. And perspectives change. You see what they the original trio said after Return of the Jedi, right? Like,
oh yeah,
like, oh, you read that and you think there's no way ever.
Yeah, they're over it by then.
And then look what we get. So things are different, and I think that's why with Natalie Portman, to my understanding, it's why the like Love and Thunder move was like quite significant, because to my understanding she didn't leave the MCU on great terms, and it was almost like there was a lot of like bitterness around the way like Thor: The Dark World went, and like, so the fact that she's back in there, that almost feels to me, it was like, well, if they patch that up.
Yeah, and I think I don't know. Like I said, I don't know Natalie Portman. This is the episode. Episode is title is I don't know Natalie Portman personally, but it's very possible she's like, oh, I'm just the girlfriend in danger again. Like, all right, well, that sounds really interesting again. Like, I thought maybe we'd do a bit more with this. Like, and Thor comes and saves you, and then all of a sudden you get a call from Taika Waititi who's like, hey, would you like to be Thor? Yeah, that's a call you want to take. And Taika's obviously got some runs on the board, so color me interested. Just doubling back around to, talk about like by Return of the Jedi, they're all kind of like over it. Have you read that Making of the Empire Strikes Back book?
Is this the Rinsler one?
Yeah.
No, I do. I have the Return of the Jedi one though.
Oh, do you? I was going to say, because you probably read it, because I think I've read most of it. They were kind of over it by the time they even got to Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't even seem like they were that hyped to come back and do that, really. Which is crazy considering the success it was.
Exactly. It's weird. Like, these things exist, like these movies exist in such like a time bubble. It's almost like people can't fathom how they like actually come together, right?
Yeah.
And just like people think there's drama now. It's like drama. There's always been drama.
There's some great stuff in that Empire book of just like, we're supposed to be shooting and no one knows where Carrie Fisher is, and last night she was out with the Rolling Stones, and like that was the last we heard. It's just like, oh, that is just so cool. I watched this documentary the other day about John Belushi, which was really, really good. Like, it's a Showtime one. It's quite a new one, actually. It was really comprehensive, and it had like lots of interviews with like his wife and Dan Aykroyd and all these other people who were on it. The only downer was that I guess it must have been done mostly during lockdown, and everyone's on like these crappy phone connection. Like the you know, it's not like to camera interviews, and it's all it kind of animates over the top. But the sound, there's a bit like they're interviewing Dan Aykroyd, and I swear to God, he's just walking around his mansion in like with his phone out, like away from anything. He's just kind of like, oh yeah, then, you know, Johnny and I did, like, it's just it. I'm like, oh my God, like I guess if that's, you've just got to use what you get, because that's your one interview with Dan Aykroyd.
Yeah.
But Carrie Fisher's in it. Like she was in the Blues Brothers, and she's quoted quite a lot. Like it's her voice and stuff. So it was obviously recorded a while ago, because she hasn't been with us for a while. But that was just that was that period. That was like that early 80s, you know, period. And she was she's obviously in the Blues Brothers, and she was dating Dan Aykroyd, and I think they actually got engaged. And she just actually, there was quite fascinating bits where like Dan Aykroyd was like, oh, John really pushed, you know, really wanted me to date Carrie. Like he was really like, you should, you know, date Carrie and, go out with Carrie and stuff. And then Carrie Fisher's like going, oh, well, you know, they just wanted us to be together because John and I were like the troublemakers, and Dan and his wife were like the good cops. So they needed like two good cops, and we were the bad cops, and we were the ones who used to get into trouble all the time. And then you needed the other two of them to basically get them out of trouble. I'm like,
yeah,
so cool, so cool.
Yeah, man, I'm telling you, if I had a time machine and I could only use it to hang out with one person, it's early 80s Carrie Fisher, man.
Like 1980s
like
Carrie Fisher.
What a hang.
Like, oh yeah.
You would do anything. That's always like just so fascinating to see all these how these people like interacted, and like just think about Empire again. And sort of like the sort of messes around it. I remember when a lot of like the 40th stuff was coming out, and you know, people were doing these specials, and there was like some conversation between Harrison Ford and Irvin Kershner about the carbonite scene. And it was like just the dialogue between the two, and it was like Harrison Ford was like, I can't go in this shirt because it's sleeveless or something, and the other shot will have me in a sleeved shirt. And it was just like, I can't remember exactly how it went down, but I know it ended with Irvin Kershner being like, shit. And it was just like this, the idea again, like this perfect movie everybody like sort of holds up here.
Yeah.
And just the like absolute bananas that happened to make it.
Oh yeah. And it was like, you know, Lucas paid for it himself and ran out of money and had to go begging to the bank. Like, could you give me money to make my Star Wars? Because it was just, there was, even though Star Wars was like such a huge hit, there was no precedence that the second one would actually make, you know, would be as big a hit. People were just like, well, I don't know, like you got lucky the first time. Are people really going to like go for this thing? I kind of, you know, it's so funny, like living in a world where, you know, like Solo is considered like a financial disaster or something, you know. But like going forward, we're in this like little sort of holding pattern. Obviously, we don't have any. We've got Bad Batch coming up soon. And have you been getting into the High Republic at all, or you've been reading the books and delving in?
Yeah, I read Light of the Jedi, which was fantastic for me. I don't know if it's like, I don't know if High Republic's like for everyone. I don't know if everyone's into it, which is also fine. Like, you don't have to be into everything.
This isn't a trap, Nicky. I'm not going to be like, you're an idiot. Gotcha. You know,
Okay.
No,
Okay.
I haven't read it, but I've listened to a few people sort of say what's happened. So that's fine with me. Like, I've listened to Hawes and Blue Harvest kind of break it down, and the Bad Motivators broke it down. A few other people, I'm just like, oh, that sounds really fascinating. I don't have time to read a book. But you know, I'm cool. I've actually checked out a couple of the comics, and I've been able to go and put that in the context of like, okay, now I understand what the Great Disaster is. I understand what the Starlight Beacon is. I understand who the Nile are, and kind of what the gist is. So, yeah.
And actually, Light of the Jedi was also an interesting experience for me because I started reading it, and then I was like, oh, but I have a Audible credit also. So like, let me also
like an idiot.
So yeah. So I was like, actually, why don't I take this as like my first step into like a Star Wars audiobook? I never listened to one before, specifically Star Wars. And I was really impressed with how they put them together. And for anybody who's like on the fence about Light of the Jedi audio production, like, I definitely recommend it. It's really cool, and just sort of, there's so many characters, and to have I think it's Mark Thompson, to have him give voice to everybody, like actually helps you separate.
So it's just sort of like, and then so-and-so said this, and then so-and-so said this, and then this guy was like this, and then
and
that's the only 3 voices I can do. I can't do it.
Yeah, no, he goes all over the place with his voices. Like there's I don't know how many different ones he does, because there's obviously so many characters, and yeah, it was actually very helpful to sort of because I know like that's another sort of, not necessarily complaint, but like a comment of, you know, getting into High Republic stuff and being like, oh my god, there's like 20 Jedi.
Like, it's like a whole new thing. You're gonna have to learn everything. Yeah. And there's just so many different, even just factions. There's all sorts of people just in different spots, and to have them sound different and help you separate that way was really interesting, and then just in general, it's a great story. It really set up this era. Does it feel like are you sort of getting at the end of it and going like, oh, like I want to like see this on a screen, I want to, or something, like I want to see this story like animated, or I want to see a movie or a Disney Plus series. Like it's got like it feels like a tangible thing to jump off. And I mean, that was sort of the idea, is like, hey, you know, books are cheap, man. We can build this world cheap and see if it's got legs.
Yeah, definitely. And that's kind of how I am with everything. Like. Like
I think you're quite similar to I am. You were touching on it before. You're just like, I like to like things. Like I'm pretty tolerant of most stuff, and I'll kind of watch something and go like, oh, that was great. Oh, yeah, that was all right. Oh, yeah, that was fine. Like I don't. It takes a lot for me to really go after something.
Same. Yeah. Like I always laugh about this too. Like whenever I see people like with characters they hate, I'm like, I don't hate a character. Like, I just don't hate a character enough to like actually like go after them.
Was it because of what they did, or like? Yeah, it's just they take it so personally, man.
Person.
Like I didn't hate Thanos. He did lots of bad stuff, but like I think he was interesting, so that was cool. He was all right. So do you reckon? Like, do they know exactly how many books? Oh, they've kind of said like there's like sort of 3 phases.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that the Acolyte, that show, I've forgotten the name of the lady who's running it, but that sort of starts at the end of the High Republic, which is sort of whatever it is, 90 years before Phantom Menace or whatever. Like, is this thing stretching like the history of the whole High Republic, or like this is just the jumping off point, but they haven't really said when it's going to finish? Like, is it still 500 years of other High Republic stuff after, or we don't know yet? Yeah,
that's a good question. I don't think they've really talked about that. Like outside of that like 3 phases you mentioned, which I would assume follows the same structure of sort of like, you know, a flagship book, a YA book, you know, some comics. Like so it sort of seems like, you know, they wouldn't be able to cover that much time.
They wouldn't want to burn 450 years of potential Star Wars. You know, like considering them, you know, I know that like Star Wars is notorious for finding stuff within 20 years of Star Wars. You know, they keep slotting little bits in between to beloved stories and stuff. But at the same time, it's like, well, we can tell this story and then we can keep 400 years open ended and then just pick up at the end.
Because I think even the Light of the Jedi is 200 years before Phantom Menace.
Right. So it's not that far out.
Yeah. So if it's 200 to 90. That's still like a significant chunk of time that I don't think will be covered by the books.
Yeah, so that's about half the initial wave. Twice a Skywalker saga. What's Skywalker saga is about 60 years from beginning to end, isn't it? Roughly 60, 20. Anakin 70. What's Anakin 10? Then he's 20, 30, and then another. Yeah, so it's about 60 odd.
Yeah, I think 32 was from Phantom Menace to New Hope, and then it's like 34.
Yeah, so it's sort of So actually it's not that far off, is it really?
Yeah, I guess so. I think it's just like contextually so different, right, of just the way the trilogy is formed. It's kind of hard to see it taking time jumps, but it could. I think that's the other exciting thing about the High Republic. It's like it can literally be anything. You know, there's so much just like free reign to make the galaxy what they want it to be, and there's just a lot of like interesting little like knock-on effects as well, because like something specific in the High Republic is like they only just invented Bacta.
Yeah, right. You know? They go, hey man, we got this cool new thing.
Right, and they're only now just sort of making these big moves into the Outer Rims and stuff, and it like you think about the knock-on effects of if they eventually do a like sort of Knights of the Old Republic type thing and go way back.
They're just living in caves.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, are they just like, are all the stories on one planet? Like, you know, it's like,
it'd be really nice to be able to get out into the stars and do something. But the funny thing is, it's like, we live on a planet where we can't go anywhere. You know, we managed to crank out a few decent stories on Earth. So I think that's quite good because I always found it kind of weird. Like, I didn't read stacks of Old Republic stuff, but like the Tales of the Jedi comics, I saw that. I got into that a little bit of the games. You know, it always felt like their technology was only about 15 years older than what was in Star Wars anyway. You know, that they still had spaceships and droids, and you know, you think about how far along your computers come from, 1991 to now, as opposed to like a droid that was made 1,200 years before, and it's just slightly more rinky. It's just not quite as sophisticated.
Yeah, they didn't like change too much, right, about the functioning of what we understand to be Star Wars and like. What the Old Republic was. Like, blasters still work the same. Yeah, we still got the droids, all the hyperspace. So like, I think it's really interesting if the fact that the High Republic resembles so much of how the Old Republic was imagined, through legends and stuff. If they do end up exploring it, it does sort of excite me to see how they would change it.
A bit more in the mud, a bit more medieval. Yeah. Which is cool. I like the idea of that. So where'd you land on Mandalorian, mate? Did you see the twist coming? I know when I had Charlie and Saf on, talking about that Luke Skywalker appearance and things. Did you kind of feel like it was an inevitability, or are you just as surprised as everybody else?
It's a bit of both, to be honest, right? Because it's like when we're talking about, we as Star Wars podcasters and whatnot, like we're sitting here week to week,
dreaming
right?
Stuff
like,
up. Yeah,
and we're just going, and we're taking apart each episode. We're spending hours a week, right? Like taking apart episodes. So it's like it's one of those things where, they're talking about a Jedi showing up. It's Chekhov's Jedi, right? Like they're like the Jedi's gonna come. Yeah, and it's like, there's only so many people it can like be like. There's not many things they can do. I didn't see them creating a new Jedi character. Yeah. And so it's like on that side, it wasn't like a huge leap, but it was also still like shocking because it's like to have gone there. Like, still, it still was shocking.
It was like I think I said this when Charlie and Saf were on. It like plot wise, it made perfect sense, but it was always the real world, like. Not consequence, but the real world like facts around it that made it hard. It was like, well, Hamill's out, like he's done, like he said, he's walked away from Luke Skywalker. How do you do that? Do you CG it? Do you recast it? Do you put someone else's face on it? Do you have someone like all those other things like that? Always like made sort of perfect sense story wise for me to Luke to be there, but it was always just like, well, are you going to get Hamill involved? Is it going to be somebody else? That didn't seem very likely, and that was more like. They went there. Like it was sort of like half they went there and like, oh wow, like he went there, like he did it in his like I don't know in his broom closet or something. I don't know. Something sort of came out about that.
I still didn't even even seeing Luke, it still like was this slap almost when I like sitting and watching the credits and seeing Mark Hamill. I was like, oh my god, right? Like it's even then it's like you don't expect him to have been so like involved with what they did, but
just seeing him seeing Luke Skywalker shot in a modern way, you know what I mean? Like every time we've seen Luke Skywalker shot, he's been that Luke Skywalker. It's been on 1982 film grain, and I know stuff gets updated and F4K, but it still looks like it's shot that way. And then if you see footage of however old Mark Hamill was at the time, 27, 28 or whatever, it's like shot an 80s video and blah 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 blah, and then all of a sudden you're seeing like that face and that person in a situation like it's kind of like the Rogue One, like in Rogue One when they bring back the red leader and gold leader, where you're like my brain is telling me that I've seen this shot and looked a different way with the lights and everything, and then I'm seeing it in this slick Gareth Edwards thing, and my brain goes, something is like messing with me.
Yeah, it's like weird like gymnastics in our head, like trying to like figure it all out. But it's just fun that they're, I don't know, I think it's fun, at least. Like it's just such a cool thing to be able to do. Like I thought the red leader, gold leader was so perfect.
Oh, I love that.
Like for that movie,
it was great to have
especially.
no idea as well. You know, like and it wasn't even like a, you know, like the Darth Vader thing we already kind of knew about before. Like not that he was in it. I mean, it was quite cool that I kind of thought he was one and done in the middle of the movie, wasn't going to come back. But that was just such a, you know, you're caught up in a really exciting time of the film as well, and then it's just like boom, you're like, oh, whoa.
Yeah. Definitely applause cues, kind of stuff. And it's also like one of those things where it's like, it doesn't interrupt the movie, but like for people who know what like who they are, it's like such a great like moment to see, and like for them to have executed it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think like I guess to sort of answer your general question about Mandalorian, yeah, like season 2 really landed for me. It was what, like I liked Mandalorian when it first came out.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know if I loved it after season 1. And then I was like, I think I need to see season 2 before I like decide how I like really feel about Mandalorian.
Yeah.
And then it came in, and I was like, every episode is hitting like a right note for me. So like I absolutely love the Krayt Dragon episode and everything about
that. Just seems like a lifetime ago, doesn't it? Like it
really does.
You know,
it does.
Of like what we sort of knew then and what we know now, and like I was sort of, you know, I was disappointed that some stuff got out about who was in it and stuff, but it didn't really affect like the big stuff. Nothing, the really massive stuff didn't get out. But
yeah.
I'm just sort of like, where do they go from here? Really, like I'd sort of made noise about Grogu, or Baby Yoda, you know, halfway through the first season, kind of going, is he just going to be luggage all the time? Like, what's the end game here? Like, is it just always going to have to? We're going to have to find creative ways to put him to the side, to leave him with someone, so we can have our adventures. And then, you know, at the end, he becomes the focus, and that they kind of found good ways to do that a little bit more in season 2. But there's still a few times where he's just like, on the shelf, we've got to go. You know, so I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see him all next season at all.
Yeah.
I feel like that this, you know, this Avengers style team up thing that they're talking about, Defenders style, you know, like the was it the Rangers of the New Republic and the Ahsoka and all that, and they're sort of saying they'll come together for something. Like, I think that's probably your place where you drop him back into the story somehow. But you know, I think they might go. I mean, it's that, you know, a lot of Baby Yoda toys out there. He sells a lot of merch, but you know, Boba Fett sells a lot of merch, and he didn't do anything for 25 years.
It would be very brave. Yeah, it'd be very brave to not have him, right? Like, especially if the merch does talk, right? Like, it's brave to not put Baby Yoda in, and yeah, I think for me, like the sort of like the low bar for me is like maybe over half of season 3, he's not in it.
Right.
And then he like comes back. Like, but I think there needs to be like significant story without him. Like,
yeah.
But I do think he'll be back. Like, I don't think it's like totally over. I don't. I don't know how.
Again, I mean, I'm no writer, so I can't. I draw a blank of how you kind of bring him in and don't lessen the impact of what you've done before, and do you have to start all over again, and is he right back where he started and all that kind of stuff. But you know, greater minds will figure that out. But it's just hard because, you know, he was like the, you know, especially the case at our house of like the conduit that kind of brought the very casual Star Wars, like the case of my partner, you know, like she's like, oh, I'll watch this Star Wars thing with you. Like when that Baby Yoda turned up, like she was in. You know, she was invested. And if I go, hey, Mandalorian, season Mandalorian 3 is back, she's like, well, you know, is Baby Yoda going to come back? I'm like, I don't know. Let's just keep watching, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's the heart and soul of the story. You know, it's the father and son, right? Like, this is it's a weird thing to try to like grapple around, like what it's gonna be without him. So I think maybe I think it was episode chapter 15, the one with Mayfeld. I think that was sort of like a primer because it was like the first episode to not have him at all.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And it was almost like this primer where, you know, even when he's not here, he's here because like the absence is felt.
Yeah, and the intention is he's still the thing that's driving them to, you know.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's kind of gone now because, you know, he's safe and the mission's accomplished and you can do other stuff. Like I know they've dusted the sort of the struggle for the mantle of Mandalore and things now, but I don't know whether that's gonna. Yeah, I don't know. Like I just feel like if I sit down with Kat and she's just like, oh, the people in those helmets are fighting the people against those helmets now. Like I think I liked it better when it was a bit more boots on the ground, you know, a bit more of a personal story kind of thing. But I don't know. I could be wrong. It's just, but at the same time, it's like, well, if you tell a great story and you have a nice conclusion and it feels done, then sometimes it can be done. It can be done. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the other thing. It's like Mandalorian's not going to be something that drags on.
Well, if it had been like, if we got to the end of season 2 and it still hadn't been resolved, and then we pick up season 3 and he's just like, I've still got to find these Jedi, sit here while I go talk to this person. I think people are like, well, come on, dude. Like, let's move this along. You know, we're on a bunch of fetch quests here. Right.
All I know is I have this image in my head that I need to see. And that is Din Djarin riding the last mythosaur that everyone thought was gone. He's riding the last mythosaur with his Beskar spear or Darksaber in hand, and he's leading an army of Mandalorians. Like that's all I see in my head.
Wow!
And
has he got Baby Yoda strapped on the side? He's got like a little
Baby
spear
Yoda's,
as well.
You know, well, he's got a lightsaber now.
Oh, he's going. Let's take it up a notch.
Yeah. No, yeah. So I don't know. I think that's a good point you make about like the casual viewer, because I'm sitting here like, oh my god, like the reclamation of Mandalore, the Bo-Katan aspect, like I have this like sort of image of Bo-Katan as this sort of like tragic hero now. Like I don't think, like for me, I don't think Mandalorian ends well for Bo-Katan.
No,
I kind of see her going
down with the ship kind of thing, maybe.
Yeah. So yeah, and it's also like, you know, that leans into like the sort of, you know, big fantasy trope of like the people best suited for power and leadership are the ones who want it the least, kind of thing. And
so like becoming the reluctant leader kind of.
Yeah, and like you know, this is a huge staple of sort of fantasy and whatever, and it just sort of like reads that way of like, you know, someone like Bo who's willing to break some break some things to get what she wants.
Yeah.
Like even in Clone Wars, like I think about that time when he's like, Olmec's like, the people won't accept you. She's like, I don't care. And you know, it's like I see a character like that, I'm like, man, that's good stuff. Like to get a season exploring that dynamic of her needing this power and him being like, I don't want it, but I have it.
Yeah, can we just get creative? Can't we make it like in Bill and Ted, where you just like we play Twister or something, and you beat me in Twister, or you beat me in
arm wrestle?
Yeah, I'll try. I'll pretend to try. Like it can be done.
Yeah, it's fascinating. There's a lot to like to dig in on that aspect. Like for again people like us who are like a little more versed in what the sort of overall machinations of the world is. Yeah, but like your casual. The people who are driving those Baby Yoda sales.
But they're relating to that, like you said, that core thing of the father, the son, the paternal stuff of it. Like that was a massive thing for, you know, we just had like when it first came out, like our second daughter was quite little. She just turned. She wasn't even 1 then, and you know, she was like, oh look, she's just like, oh look, she's, you know, does like she does the same. Baby Yoda does the same thing that she does, and you know, there's a lot of that. But at the same time, it's like, well, just because it's good doesn't mean it's got to go forever. Sometimes it's just like, hey, they did it and it's done. But like we were just talking about before about like who in Star Wars could they get back? They got everybody back. Like it's not like they could help themselves. They're like, hey,
Yeah.
we'll get everybody back eventually. Baby Yoda doesn't have an agent. We can wheel him out whenever we want.
Exactly.
He could be. They should be doing like shopping center tours and things like that.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, and I think like the other thing with it is, I think Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni and Kathleen Kennedy and everyone else involved at that level, I think they've earned our trust enough to let them figure it out, kind of thing. Sure. Right.
Absolutely.
So it's like it's one of those things where it's like, for as many questions as we might have about what's this going to be, how are you going to fill this void, what's the dynamic, it's like I think we can let them figure that out for us.
not to mention that 20 minutes ago we're just going, we're just the kind of guys who are pretty happy with everything. You know what I mean? Like we're like, we're fine, whatever, we'll be cool.
No panic stations here.
I do regret that, wheeling back around to missing Celebration. Like if we'd been in a Mandalorian panel and they got like a little animatronic Baby Yoda to walk out on the stage or something, could you imagine? People would have lost their minds. It would have been like that time, bigger than that time BB-8 came out for the first time.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like that's the magic of it. There's so many things they could have done. Like there's so many absolute layups, some slam dunks they could have done by promoting the show with it, but they didn't, and they sat on it. And it's like this perfect storm of just things working, I guess. Like the fact that did not leak is shocking.
It's crazy, isn't it? Like, because I was in that Mandalorian panel, and it was exciting and cool. We saw the footage, and I think there was a little bit of grumbling of like, oh yeah, well, it looks okay. And I seem to remember it looking great. I don't remember having any sort of but there was no inklings of Baby Yoda and blah 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 blah. But even if they had done a Mandalorian panel, the Celebration that wasn't, and they brought Baby Yoda out to that, people still would have lost their minds, because it's just like, oh my god, it's walking. Like if they got it to walk, great. But even if they just had I don't know, like when the Muppets appear and there's just a suspicious black, covered table in the middle of the thing, there's someone on there just working the puppet. That's pretty cool. But
and those are great panels, by the way. Like anyone listening who's not been to a Neil Scanlon panel at one of the celebrations, they are such a blast because they bring all sorts of cool stuff out. I remember the one in Chicago, they brought the guy from Solo who has the 6 eyes, and they're kind of like that.
Yeah.
And they were explaining the technology of how they programmed his eyes to track as well, and the blinking, and it was they went so detailed in figuring out the animatronics of just his eyes, and it's they're literally magicians over there. It's so cool. So you can't imagine what. I assume eventually they will bring the Baby Yoda puppet.
Oh, they could put that in the basketball center and do the Baby Yoda panel. You'd probably feel it. It doesn't have to be in the back, the back room or anything. I think people would lose their minds over it. Before we start wrapping around the corner here, mate, we got all that stuff dumped on us in that big investors thing, more than anybody realistically thought was possible, I suppose. Was there anything in that where you were just we talked about Obi-Wan, but we just yes, I didn't even know I wanted it, now I want it. I didn't, was there something out there that really jumped and spoke to you?
Yeah, and it was something I did want. So
even better.
It was it's the Rogue Squadron movie. To me, that is kind of a distillation of everything I really, really love in Star Wars. I love pilots. Mm-hmm. I love X-Wing pilot. I love Starfighter pilots. I love the old Rogue Squadron novels from back in the old EU Legends. So I love those stories. I love again, just pilots and flyers and all that stuff. So that movie was the one that I was dancing for. So I'm really excited for that.
When do you reckon it's going to be set? Do you have any inkling?
Not really. I think the graphic they used is the Rebellion era X-Wing.
Right.
Whether they're married to that, I don't know. Because I think you can tell a really cool post Episode 9 story. That's sort of the rebuilding of this legacy squadron, and sort of start pushing storytelling post Episode 9. I think that'd be really cool. But also, using the Rebellion era X-Wing, and there's still a lot of room to play between Jedi and Force Awakens. So it's hard to say, especially with also the other show I'm really excited for, because they sort of work hand in hand, is the Rangers of the New Republic, because like just the sort of like New Republic sort of military, if the Rogue Squadron revival is also part of that, and if they start working together, that could be a thing. So maybe there's room to play still between 6 and 7. But either way, it's like, I mean, also we talked about they're done until they're not. It's like if it was a later movie and they brought back General Poe Dameron for this Rogue Squadron movie, I would lose my mind.
That's the kicker, isn't it? I never really thought about that. And we should just touch on very quickly. You are one of the few actors in the world now who've also portrayed General Poe Dameron. You're in the episode 10 thing. Yeah. Shout out to our friends on the Blue Bantha Milk. Yeah. It's gaining some huge traction. That video now, and I've watched. I haven't watched all of it. I've watched bits of it, skipped to bits, and seen everybody producing. And you got a little bit of the old swagger going on there, Nicky. So if if Oscar Isaac politely declines,
indeed, the role of a lifetime.
Yeah,
that's the one for me.
The new Sebastian Stan. We just got to get some photoshopping going, like all those Sebastian Stan photoshoppers, and just start putting you into posters and things like that. And going, who is this guy? But I guess it'll work.
Yeah, make it happen, people. Let's get a hashtag going, right?
Get a hashtag going.
But yeah, anything to do with pilots, I am there for. So when they slap down those Rogue Squadron stuff, and I'm very excited for Patty Jenkins as well to be tackling it. So yeah, that's the one. And like, to be clear, also, there wasn't anything.
There wasn't anything you sat there and went, I don't know about that.
Yeah, I was like, I'm on board for it all. It's like walking into, like, they're building the buffet, and it's there, and I'm ready to eat. Like,
yeah. You got like your sack ready, and you've got your extra loose belt on, and you're just
exactly.
Awesome, man. Thanks so much for doing this. Now we should touch you guys down the old Imperial Senate podcast. Just clocked 100 episodes. What a milestone. Yeah. Put your bat up, made the ton. I was going to make, I don't know if you, although you lived in England, you probably really know a ton in cricket. It's a big deal if you score 100 runs. Maybe
exactly,
a little bit. Yeah. It's a big deal. So
century.
Yeah, that's right. Raise that bat. Do you want to do give a little plug, give the people a little bit about what you guys are all about? I mean, you probably already know if you're listening to this, but hear it from the man himself.
Yeah, absolutely. We're the Imperial Senate Podcast, hosted by myself, Charlie Ashby, Claire Stribling. We're weirdos, man. So again, if you listen, thank you. Already, thank you. We just released 101, and man, that was a weird one. So
I haven't listened to that one yet, but I get something about Nanny McPhee in the description. Yeah. I'm like, all right, slow news week. It must be. It's
yeah, exactly. We're we just like to cover Star Wars. We like to laugh about it. We like to every now and again turn on some serious hats, or put on some serious hats. But we just try to have fun with Star Wars, like we all do, and that's what we do. You can find us at on Twitter at ImpSenatePod, and wherever you find your good podcasts.
And this podcast.
There we go.
Thanks, mate. Awesome. Great chatting. It's been, we've talked about it for a while. I think probably even past Celebration, we sort of touched base and stuff. And I've been taking the summer off, and I lost my voice. I got a cold. All this sort of stuff happened, and I couldn't record. But you know what? It's only podcasting. You get it when you get it, everybody. Like, come on. Just accept it for what it is.
Exactly. All this free entertainment.
I know. Come on, man. I just got because I also do a Peppa Pig podcast as well. If people who listen to this probably know, with my buddy Matt Frost, and we got back together and we recorded a few episodes earlier in the week as well. So that was good. I was like, oh yeah, back in the groove, man. Like the Peppa Pig podcast does way better than the Star Wars one, and that just keeps ticking along really, because it's not like it's news based. People aren't checking. It's not like when the new Game of Thrones comes out or anything. It's just like, oh, Peppa Pig. It's just I can just go through any of these. It doesn't really matter.
Nope, Peppa Pig pet casting rumors.
No,
to dig into.
No, like who are they going to bring back? If Mummy Pig dies, they'll have to recast Mummy Pig or anything like that. That hasn't happened. That hasn't happened yet. Awesome. Well, you can find all our stuff at StarWarsSpelledOut.com. That's about it, really. T-shirts are on TeePublic, so on and so forth. Nicky, thank you so much, mate. Been a pleasure as always.
Yeah, thank you. Can't wait to come back.
All right. Well, we'll try to make it sooner than later. We'll make you wait years. Maybe not as as soon as Charlie does. But again, it's the Soul Stone. You've got to look after the Soul Stone, mate.
Exactly. Right. Got to build anticipation.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Got to kill someone to get it done.
There we go.
Cool, man. Thanks a lot.
Perfect. See ya.